I'm Meta Spencer, and we have a very interesting and thrilling conversation coming up for those of you who care about and know something about the situation in Venezuela. Because just today, there was another demonstration against the government, a massive street demonstration, and we have people here who can tell you, can talk about that. I have a panel of very wonderful Venezuelans, mostly exiles living in Canada, but one person who actually was in the demonstration today. We're going to have a conversation about our notions, our respective ideas about the way forward. We take it for granted that there needs to be a very significant change in the government in Venezuela. The situation is dire there. People don't have water sometimes because the electricity is off. We can't make connections with people on the internet. We think people are actually tampering with that to keep our informants from being able to talk to us. The electricity is off. The food supplies are low. An average adult Venezuelan, as I understand it, has lost 11 kilograms in body weight during the last couple of years because of the shortage of food, lack of even good water, because water is provided, pumped by electricity. Medical supplies are inadequate. There's a recent report that the humanitarian situation with respect to medical emergencies is catastrophic. So people in Venezuela have reached pretty much the end of their endurance, one would think, although they seem to be able to keep going indefinitely. So, we certainly are I think all of us recognize that the movement for democracy now being led by Juan Guaidó is something that has to be supported. And we won't even get into whether or not, and we won't get into a discussion of our particular ideologies or theories or even the history of Venezuela very much. What we want to focus on this evening are situations, an update on what's going on now and the prospects for solving the situation and in the near future. So our speakers are, and this is no particular order, Angel Alvarez, who is a political science professor and was the head of the political science department at the Central University of Venezuela. He is now living in Toronto. We have also Isaac Nahon Serfati, who is a professor of communications at the University of Ottawa. He is a journalist in his own background and is the chair of the communications department at the University of Ottawa. We have Francisco Wolf, who is a former student of mine and has been doing, he's an economist who's been doing international development work and financial management mostly in Latin America for 25 years. We have Uriria Lanza, who is an IT professional living in Vancouver. She also sings. She was at a concert last night and couldn't be with us when we got together last time. And now I'm going to lead off with our speaker from Caracas, Nestor Garrido. He is a journalist. He's with the National Association of Journalists of Venezuela, and he's a former professor at the Catholic University in Venezuela. So, Nestor, each of you I should have had you each say hi when I introduced you so that the camera would pick up and we can identify you. Angel, say hi. Angel?
Hello.
Hello. Francisco, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Very nice to meet with you tonight.
Good. And Isaac?
Oh, Meta, thank you very much for the invitation.
And now Nestor.
You did it.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Nestor Garrido from Caracas.
Okay, Nestor, you have the floor. Tell us what went on today in the streets of Caracas.
Well, in Caracas, there was a huge demonstration from all over the city, going to the east part of the city because the government has another demonstration in the west part of the city. I can't tell you how big was how big the demonstration of the government was, but I can assure you that the Guaido's one was very, very, very big. And there was from my house to the last point was about 8 kilometers, and about 3 hours walking from my house to there. And there was a lot of people coming all over the city. And they were joining people going to the Guaido's meeting at the end of the demonstration. First of all, the demonstration was about water and about electricity. People were asking for better services, and there was also the same polls. I mean, a lot of people trying to express themselves in spite of the government's arms officers going around trying to push people back. And anyway, people just went out and expressed themselves in trying not to fall into provocation, in order to keep peace and to say what they think and to support Guaido.
The movement, the democratic movement, has so far been scrupulously nonviolent, very committed to preventing any kind of violent activity. Is that commitment holding up, so far as you can tell, on the part of the demonstrations and the activists? And how much potential do you see on the part of the government or the military or the National Guard to repress the protests?
I told you about the situation in Caracas, but in other cities like Maracaibo and San Felipe, there was a violent demonstration because people are very tired of the cut off power, especially in Maracaibo city. Maracaibo is in the western part of the country and is the last city to receive any electricity from the Guri Dam, that is where the hydroelectric engine are. So they are suffering a lot. Maracaibo is the second city of the country and is also the capital of the oil. And they have no power for about a week. So people are getting angrier. And in San Felipe, there were clashes between people demonstrating and these groups, organized groups. It's like paramilitary groups supported by the government in order to repress people. And I have seen in the social networks that there were two of them were taken by the people, and there were some kind of violence, and one of them was shot and the other was hung out by the feet, and they were exposed to the violence and the anger of the people. But I can say that mostly because this is what happened here in Caracas happened in all the cities of the country at the same time.
A demonstration took place in every city.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Big cities.
Mm-hmm.
So to in two cities there were these violence demonstration, and it's very difficult for people to contain,
and yes, contain their anger, I imagine.
Okay, all right. So it's from time to time we have to do this spiritual exercise to keep on and to hold the horses, not to try to do what the heart and the head said in order to express the anger people have.
Okay, now within the democratic movement, is that a consistent position, or is there fragmentation going on? Are there people who want to change course in some way, or are they staying the course behind the Guaidó approach?
Until now, people are supporting Guaidó.
Good. All right, that's an excellent update. Now let's get to I'm going to ask you to come back in a minute after everybody else has offered a suggestion. And I'm going to ask Yuri if you will give us your prescription first. Let's all offer advice. If you imagine that you're the advisor to Guaidó, what would you propose doing in the next little while?
From my perspective, and by the way, I was a professor in a university in Venezuela before I came to Canada, at the Metropolitan University. So the answer to your question is, in suggestion to my advice, basically one of the things I think, and it's pretty hard, as I understand, not only for what Nestor was saying, is I notice a huge emotional exhaustion. And being emotionally exhausted and be calm and being pacific and being non-violent is really a very narrow margin there to cover it. So how anyone can control that emotional exhaustion before going into a demonstration so they don't fall into the trap that the government really wants, which is fall into the violence. Mm-hmm. So that would be my main advice, let's put it that way, is not only on Guaidó, but that would be on anyone that is guiding and leading any demonstration.
Thank you. All right, fine. Angel Alvarez.
Okay. From my point of view, I would say that Juan Guaidó is facing a very challenging situation right now, because actually he has leading a very powerful movement in the Venezuelan streets, and he has also an important support. So for that reason, I will say that the most important thing that Guaidó has to do right now is to develop a plan in order to keep putting pressure on Maduro's regime by the appropriate combination between the diplomatic pressure from the countries that are supporting the process of democratization in Venezuela, and at the same time maintaining the level of peaceful protest in the street. And the challenge in this particular field is to keep being peaceful at the first time, and also increase or make a broader coalition. But he also needs the support of some other social sectors. And I will mention two of them that are crucial. He needs to gain the support of the rank and file military. I don't mean the generals, the top military, but he needs the support of the rank and file military. Not to organize a rebellion, not to organize a coup d'etat. He needs the support of that in order to show that there is a broad coalition of Venezuelans, including civilians and the military, who are suffering exactly the same situation, exactly the same desperation, exactly the same level of starvation and scarcity, and they create this idea of the leader of a nationwide coalition for democratization.
I think you said he needs to form a partnership with two other groups, the rank and file in the military, and what's the second group? The
second group is the national bureaucracy. I would say the public servants. They are
public servants,
because they are currently nowadays. There is a kind of overlapping between the ruling party and the bureaucrats. So there is a kind of the main activists that are mobilized by the ruling party are at the same time public servants. So he has to gain the support of those people who are not really activists, committed activists of the ruling party. They are just there because they suffer a lot of pressure in order to show up during the Maduro demonstration, and even they are coerced to vote for the government.
I have read that the best estimates are that 85% of the Venezuelan population favors Guaido's movement. And I presume that includes, at least in their heart of hearts, a lot of these people in the public service and in the military as the rank and file, even though as groups, they're not mobilized to support.
You're totally right. Probably most of them and their families are supporting the democratic transition in Venezuela represented by Juan Guaidó. But he needs them to show up, then to demonstrate with him.
Okay, got it. Oh, Francisco, it's your turn. What are you going to recommend?
Well, first, I mean, I'm very intrigued by Angel's views and suggestions. I'm not sure what is it that you would ask of these people, right? The civil servants in particular. I mean, are you asking them to come out in the marches in the streets? I mean, I don't think that the opposition needs to show more popular support in the streets. I mean, they fill up to the brim the cities every time they go out. I don't know if having a few more civil servants in the demonstrations would make a difference. So I'm intrigued about that. You know, what specific action would you ask of these civil servants? Are you asking them to walk out on their jobs and to bring the government to a halt by doing that?
There are many strategies that can be developed, and probably being in the street demonstrating may be one of the last that can be implemented. But there are some steps that they can make before that. For instance, I think that, for instance, the strike, or in the case of the military, the decision of not participating in repression, or to avoid direct confrontation with the demonstrators. They may go to the demonstration. They may pretend that they are following orders, but they can do, for instance, they can shot to another place different from the people demonstrating. They can shoot to the floor, to the sky, to wherever. They can even in some cases make decisions to not engage in repression. This can happen, and actually it has happened in some cases in the past, even in Venezuela recently. I have seen.
When the military or some of the militias refrained from repressing people when they were ordered to do so, Is that what you were suggesting, that this has already happened?
Exactly. And we have seen that in a few cases in Venezuela recently. We have seen some policemen and some military has been who has avoided to implement the order that they have been given to prepare. And in some cases, they have been only individual decisions for a few of them in some cases. But my suggestion is that the Guaido's movement has to invite those people to increase the level of resistance to illegal and violent order.
Great.
This may be, I always think in a case, is a very interesting movie, a classic Russian movie called The Potemkin. I don't remember the exact name. It was made by yeah, and actually it's about that. When those people who are called, who receive the order to repress, but they are suffering exactly the same situation that those people who are demonstrating, they can make the decision to avoid and to disobey the order. And
that's the name of the game, isn't it?
We have some emblematic cases that can be shown and can be publicized. This can be a behavior that can be repeated in different places.
So
very important.
I hear you, and I think this is probably a line of debate that we should take further. I'm gonna be skeptical about this, right? Because my general view is that we have gone well beyond what would have been reasonable expectations in the organization of these types of protests in Venezuela. And the government, the dictatorship has shown the ability to resist and to stand in the face of the most unthinkable conditions in the country.
Okay, but Francisco, what is your own recommendation?
Right. So I just to finish that point. So I think that there are diminishing marginal returns to this strategy, right? And it's not clear that it's moving the government more than it has already, right? And it has achieved some objectives. It has achieved a number of good things. So I think that at this point, my advice to Guaidó would be that he needs to put more emphasis on the international lobbying, and he needs to build the strategic international coalition with military support to bring strategic interventions in well-selected areas in the borders of Venezuela, in the borders with Colombia, in the borders with Brazil, perhaps the Margarita Island, and seek to establish in Venezuelan territory, but close to the borders, safe zones where international humanitarian assistance can be delivered, and where people in Venezuela can go there in the case that they need, protection, that their physical integrity is threatened. They can seek refuge there, and we could establish these safe zones in multiple points around the borders of the country. Eventually, I can even imagine one of the ports, be that Puerto Cabello or in Puerto La Cruz. So one of those two ports seem to me that could be Guanta, exactly, near Puerto La Cruz, could be candidates for this. A place that is geographically small enough that can be contained and controlled, and where the repression and the authority of the regime is no longer effective, right?
Francisco, these military people that you want to come in, who are they? Are they UN peacekeepers who would be there to protect people, or are they people who are there to fight a war?
So, of course, ideally, you would want to do this under a Security Council resolution. But of course, we know the Security Council has been turned dysfunctional because of the split between the Western nations and Russia and China on the other side. So Russia and China both have a vested interest in Venezuela that is perverse, and they will never allow in the Security Council a decision of this nature. So that is not an option, I think, available. Some people are still working there. Even yesterday, I think today, Mike Pence was claiming that it's going to go back to the Security Council to argue for more support there. So that we should not desist on that, but we have a very strong consensus now in the Organization of American States. We have the Lima Group, where I think it would be possible to achieve this kind of agreement. And we have two very supportive governments in the case of Colombia and Brazil that would be, I think that they could be persuaded to provide the frontline sort of military support in the form of security forces to protect the humanitarian organizations that would be delivering the assistance. And I think the U.S. could provide logistical and air support to ensure that, that these areas are protected. This would not be an aggressive intervention in the first instance. It would be there only to put in evidence that the Maduro regime doesn't actually have the control that it claims to have over the national territory and over the minds and wills of the people of Venezuela. And I think that this kind of physical presence would also serve as a final test to the willingness of security forces in Venezuela to shift sides.
Okay, thank you. Isaac, your turn.
Yes, I would like to focus a little bit on the internal front, if you want, because I think there are things that Guaidó can do in order to challenge the Maduro regime. Nestor was a little bit describing what happened today in Caracas, where you had, this huge demonstration of the democratic forces supporting Guaidó, and then you had another demonstration of the, let's say, supporters of Maduro or whoever, I don't know, maybe they were public servants and people who are kind of forced to be there. But then what we saw today again was this typical split in Caracas that we have seen in the past, which is, the democratic forces in the east side of the city and then the Maduro forces in the west side. And my suggestion would be that Maduro should challenge that divide, that he should push, and I know there are risks of trying to push forward and move west in the city. And for those who know Caracas, moving west, meaning getting closer of the presidential palace first, and getting closer of some areas that were controlled by Chavismo in the past. I'm talking about poor areas in Caracas. And also it has a psychological meaning that really you are challenging the regime and you are entering its terrain, its field, and you are really moving forward in having people from the west side of Caracas and the east side kind of uniting and kind of, coming together in order to promote a change towards democracy in Venezuela. That would be my first advice. But I would like to notice something, because Nestor referred to those confronting these paramilitary groups, the so-called colectivos today in Maracaibo and in a small city called San Felipe in the region of Yaracuy. But I've seen also in the social media today, people in San Fernando de Apure. It's also a small city in the southwest of the country. And they also confronted in a non-violent way these colectivos, and they were very successful in repealing the colectivos in San Fernando. You can look for the video of people, confronting them in a very strong way without using violence.
We need to explain what colectivos are.
Well, the colectivos are the paramilitary that the government of Maduro used to repress, to intimidate people, and sometimes to kill them. And they use them in different cities today, in Maracaibo, in San Felipe, in other cities, and also in this small city of the Venezuelan plains called San Fernando de Apure. And what I've seen in social media today is people demonstrating in the streets of that city, confronting in a non-violent way these colectivos. And let me tell you something else that happened today. For the first time, the Minister of Defense, General Padrino Lopez, referred to these paramilitary groups today. And he referred to them in a very funny way, because he didn't say, you know, we're going to fight these criminals. Actually, he said, you know, these groups, these paramilitary are really from the, what he called the right-wing parties. These are used by the right-wing, you know, to kind of damage the reputation of our government, whatever. But he's referring to this group, and he said, we're going to confront them. We're going to confront them.
We being the Maduro government.
Yeah, I mean, Maduro or the military. And I think if you read between the lines, I think there is a pressure on the military to say something, and certainly to do something. I don't know if they are going to do something, but at least to say something about these groups, completely illegal, completely that are completely, you know, out of control in terms of the kind of things that they do. I mean, looting, killing, intimidating people. And I think this, at least, is a qualitative change. And we have to see what happened. But certainly what happened in Maracaibo, what happened in San Felipe, unfortunately, a violent reaction from people, but also what happened in San Fernando is showing that people are fed up with these paramilitary groups, that they don't want them to be out in the streets, you know, intimidating them, repressing them.
Now, would that go so far, would you go so far as to say that this is presages the possibility that the government will simply distance themselves and disavow them and try to shut them down? Or they just don't want to accept responsibility for the fact that they are the ones paying them to do these things?
Yeah, the regime has been always very ambiguous in terms of how they use these paramilitary groups. We saw the other day that one of the main leaders of this regime, Diosdado Cabello, you know, show on TV and social networks a video of him with these people in a training camp in Venezuela. You know, kind of displaying what they do. We train, we shoot, we use these kind of weapons, etc. But then you have the Ministry of Defense saying, no, these groups, you know, these are not groups supporting the government. These are groups for the right wing, whatever. They always have these very ambiguous, but I don't think they will disavow or cut any relations with them, because these groups are a fundamental part of the support of the government. I don't think they will do.
The whole point of having paramilitary organizations type is so that you can use them when you need them, and you can disown them when they're problematic.
And
so
I would like to say something.
And actually, for the government, it's absolutely important to rely on those paramilitary groups, particularly because of the situation of the formal repressive organization of the states, and particularly the military. The military are not operational right now. They are not functional. They have a tremendous problem in order to mobilize troops or to organize any kind of formal military activity. So these paramilitary organizations are more efficient for the government in order to implement repression than the formal military and police. So for that particular reason, probably in the future, or eventually nowadays, I saw that news that you are mentioning, Zach, and I thought exactly the same. Probably there is already a contradiction, not between the Minister of Defense but there may be some kind of disagreement in the in the militaries, from particularly some medium ranks of the military, that may be concerned about the use of these paramilitary groups. And because actually the main instrument that the military in Latin America always has have in order to relate with the government is the use of violence. They are supposed to have the monopoly of the violence. Mm-hmm. And if they lose this monopoly of the violence, they are in a weaker position in order to negotiate with the civilians in the government, even if the government is one like the Maduro's one, which is supported by.
And there's always a possibility. There's always a possibility of a backlash kind of thing. If they use violence, it can often stimulate more opposition to them. Because like the violence and get more angry.
Very important to notice that the own president Maduro called these groups of the paramilitaries as part of the biggest the real supporters of his regime. It was in national television in about a week.
So he's nowhere near disavowing this.
The military as a group has been already intervened by the Cubans, okay? And everybody knows that. The proportion of Cubans within the military is something that is unknown, but it is one of the things that is happening, and everybody knows that that is happening, which means reduces the capacity of them to revolt, and that would be an answer for what Angel said before. The possibility that they would do anything, it would be very low, even if the lower ranking, because there is a proportion there, which I don't know exactly, but they are really watched by the military intelligence of Cuba. Mm. So that is on one hand. Then when you talk about the colectivos, one of the things that happened with some group of the colectivos is that they have gone out of the hands of the control of the military, because they are a hand of the military. And if they go out of the hand of the military, of course, they would say, no, they are right-wing or whatever. But it is, in reality, it is very important for the government of Maduro for them to be around. And the question I would like to leave for Nestor, that I believe he would be the next one that I almost interrupted him, is I had some people tell me that in the demonstrations in Caracas, Maracaibo, Puerto Ordaz, and I can't remember what other place, you can see a difference between, let's put it, the example of Caracas would be the west side and the east side. And the people would be separated by the east side would be the old people, and the young people would be the west side, but they seem not to be mingling, getting together, let's put it that way, into the demonstration. So that would be only one question I will leave for Nestor, but as well as suggestion for Guaidó, how to get those groups getting together so that the west side doesn't get separated from the east side, because clearly they are going there, but they're not getting together.
Thank you. And Nestor, not only should you answer Yuri's question, but I would appreciate your commenting on all of the other suggestions that other people have made as to how realistic you think they are and how much they fit in with or don't conform to the plans of Guaido's movement, as you understand it.
Well, to me, the problem with the east side and the west side of the city is just a problem of demonstration of power. People living in the west side have to go to the east side to protest there. Mm. And most of the people that goes to the demonstration for the government are public employees. Most of them, and also they have, of course, they have supporters, but they are every day they are getting less people going there. I mean, they are fewer all the time, and the most of them goes with red teachers with logos from the different institutions and different state offices, and most of them are obligated to go there. They are not a public. There's not a. It's a mandatory demonstration because they have to go there in order to preserve their jobs, and that's what I see in the West and the East. The problem is that the police has this kind of division in order to it's a symbolic division of the city, saying that only the rich part of the city are protesting, because traditionally in Caracas, west part is the poorest part of the city, but traditionally they have done this imaginative wall, is invisible wall that separates both parts of the city. That's it. But it's only symbolic. It's not really, because people going from the West are protesting right now in the East. And you can see in the faces. 10 years ago.
Sorry, you have lots of poor people going to protest with the people who are identified as the rich people. Is that right?
Or middle class. Yes, that's it. Or they say, for example, they have this narrative. We people that support Maduro are the black and the Indians and the poor people, and only the white people and the rich and the middle class are going to support Guaidó. But it's not true. It doesn't exist really. It's just it's just a narrative. Yeah. It's not really.
But also there is a fallacy in this whole debate about the nature of the demonstrations, which in my mind is this idea that if the demonstrations were of some other constitution, whatever you want to make it, more black skin or whatever, poor, I don't know, then the government would fall. And I think that this is false. Venezuelans have been mobilizing in the streets in overwhelming numbers, in a great number of occasions over many years, and this has proven to be not enough to bring change in the government. So I don't understand the purpose of continuing this debate about the nature of the demonstrations. This is clearly not the way change is going to come. We need to do something else.
That's the reason why.
I don't think you'll get a complete agreement on that, Francisco. And
no, I'm putting it out there for you guys.
We need to let Nestor finish his.
Yeah.
He had his full turn, and I asked you to do other things too, Nestor, to comment on not only this very interesting class distinction that you were referring to, but also comment on the opinions that other people have expressed as to whether or not you think they are, which ones are realistic and worth supporting.
Well, for me, Guaidó has to keep on doing what he's doing right now. I think he has a very strong charisma in the people, and people is convincing themselves that the only way to get rid of this regime is to unite and to keep on supporting the democracy and the return of the democracy in Venezuela. I have seen in this occasion here in Caracas that people are organizing some kind of help, talking to their neighbors in order to be more, to have more protection against, in front of this regime that is forcing them or they are oppressing them with the lack of services and with those violent groups that are going around the streets. When and in that case, I'm seeing that people are getting more conscious in order to be more united, and they are organizing this kind of little cells all over the cities in order to know who are living in the streets, who are living in the buildings, who can give any help in case of another emergency, like what we have been living through the last month. Mm-hmm. And that's very, very important because it doesn't exist before Guaidó. Mm-hmm. Guaidó is bringing this idea in order to organize, to have this communication, and that is giving people, and this organization is giving people power to confront the regime. That
is beautiful because, and there's something, a huge amount of research on that, showing that kind of activity, that trend of mobilizing people and building community as they struggle together, building those relationships is exactly what enables nonviolent struggles inevitably to be much more likely to have a democracy afterward than struggles that have been waged in other ways. So it's a beautiful thing to see that you're reporting that this is happening. Great. Excellent. Now, what do you think about the comments that other people have made so far?
I would like that Yuridia can re-ask me once again, because I forgot what she was asking for.
It's the presence of the west side and the east side. How unified can you see them in the demonstrations? That was basically the question. That's the best I can put it all together. So are they really unifying, and the difference between young people from the west and the old people that remains in the east? Even though they're doing it together, but they seem not to be going as a one block together.
They are marching together, yes. From the west and the east, and the young and the old people. I have to tell you something very interesting that happened in my area. I live in La Florida, that is a middle class area in Caracas, very close to a very low class barrio that's called Chapellín. And one of the first demonstration supporting Guaidó, I think it was the one that when Guaidó swear as an interim president. Yeah, that was. People from La Florida was able to go through the Chapellín barrio to go to that demonstration. So the demonstration get into that barrio. That barrio is a very poor area.
Slum.
That was slum. Yeah, that was traditionally a Chavista place. It's a Chavista area. So they talked to the people there, and they let us get into and to get through the barrio to go to that demonstration, to the meeting with Guaidó. It was very meaningful because it was the first time that people from La Florida can, as a group, with identify themselves as supporter of the opposition leader, could go into the barrio and demonstrate inside and go through it. So this borders between opposition areas and the areas controlled by the Chavismo are
going
fading.
down. Yeah, they're going down. They're fading. And that's basically what I wanted to be sure that I understood that from what I was told.
So all of this represents progress for the democratic movement. That is that the basic underlying message or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Nestor. That's very helpful. Now, we only have about 4 minutes in which to wind up, and I would like, if any of you think that anybody else has said something brilliant or stupid, this is a time to offer your remarks about what you see as the most promising way forward.
Well, I would like to say something about the humanitarian crisis of this particular, very, very serious crisis that most Venezuelans are facing, because this is an important factor and we shouldn't forget that. When Nestor was talking about the situation in Maracaibo, it's really desperate in terms of the access to, electricity, running water, services, even food. It's an issue, and in other parts of the country. And I think this is a key factor here. When we're talking about, yes, certainly people are suffering, certainly people are sometimes are looking, to survive. But what we saw today is that even if you have people without power for weeks, even if you have people having all kinds of issues, they still go out and demonstrate. Because what is clear here, and I think it's clear for most Venezuelans, for a huge majority of Venezuelans, is that this humanitarian crisis will be solved only if there is a transition towards democracy in Venezuela. That with Maduro and his cronies there, this emergency won't end. And this is and that's why we've seen people in Maracaibo, we've seen people in the small towns in San Felipe, in San Fernando, and in other cities, because they understand clearly that the way forward is a change of government and a return to democracy. And I think this is a very important message that we are getting from the people of Venezuela.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Isaac. Anybody else?
I would like, first of all, say that I'm very pleased what Nestor say, that the people are getting together. It doesn't matter the social class, and the actual factor that people are allowing people from the middle class to get into the barrios or the slums, okay, is very important, because that is a measure of how important that part of solidarity is growing up. Mm-hmm. That is how I see it from my perspective. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I think that's brilliant what you said, Nestor.
Okay. Well, I started off with the notion that things were looking pretty grim, in that the thing we hear about most here, at least in the news that I get, is everything depends on whether or not the military defects and goes over to the democratic movement. But it sounds as if there are lots of other things going on there besides the decision of the military leaders, anyway, and many other ways of making progress. And I think I have to put in my oar to say that almost invariably, when things turn violent, it reduces the effectiveness of the thing, and the odds of success get a lot worse. So I'm just pleased to see the courage that I hear expressed here about people continuing to show up and continue this nonviolent struggle, even though it doesn't look easy. And by the way, I think it's also important for those of us living in the West to realize that, yes, there are ways in which we should be doing more to help. And the humanitarian aid, the pressure, there were, I think the Johns Hopkins and Human Rights Watch just issued an appeal to the Secretary General of the UN to do more to make sure that humanitarian aid gets in. There's something like 7 million people in Venezuela who are in real trouble. I mean, really unable to find food and water and so on. Medical care.
Imminent risk of death. Yes.
Especially medical care, apparently.
Right.
And that every pressure should be made on international organizations to insist that the Maduro government allow materials to be brought in, and if they don't, we got to do it some other way. Send it in by drones and parachutes, or however you have to do it, to get aid to the people who need it. That's my 2 cents worth on what needs to be done from the position that I occupy in North America. And I hope that those of you who find this conversation worth sharing will send the link when I have it ready and edited. It'll be on YouTube and so on, and on our page to savetheworld.ca, as well as on Facebook. If you'll send this link to your friends and people that you want to share this information with. Yes, Francisco, you have the last word.
Well, I think it would be a sad misconception if we leave this conversation. I mean, I appreciate your narrative of shifting from pessimism to optimism in light of what we've been hearing, but it would be naive to think that this is a problem, a crisis that can be overcome strictly by Venezuelans in Venezuela organizing and doing this. We are not dealing with a normal, with a regime that has any kind of decency.
Yeah, okay. All of us agree with that. I think there's no question. And I have just put in my support to your argument to this extent, that I certainly think that there needs to be more done to provide humanitarian aid. I'm sure
and more pressure needs to be put on the international community. More pressure needs to be put on the countries that are still enabling the regime to retain some kind of legitimacy.
Fair enough. I think we've already used up our time. It's time for us to say goodbye. I want to thank all of you, and I appreciate this very much. Bless you all.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Meta.
Bye.
Bye.
This conversation is one of the weekly series Talk About Saving the World, produced by Peace Magazine and Project Save the World. Please visit our website at tosavetheworld.ca, where you can sign the Platform for Survival, a list of 25 public policy proposals that, if enacted, would greatly reduce the risk of 6 global threats to humankind. Come back next week for another discussion of a serious global issue.